and the impact it has made for the past few years and the coming years. Thank you very much for making it to the studio.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yes. Muso, we're really expecting a lot, and I'm so glad you made it here in the studio. So basically, I want you to introduce for us and our viewers there to know exactly who JUMA YUSUF is.
Okay. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to you viewers. As had been mentioned, my name is CPA JUMA YUSUF. I'm a former branch chair of ICPAK Coast Branch. I was the chair between the years 2016 and to 2018 here China. I'm also a practitioner. I work in Mombasa. I've been in employment in private sector for quite some time. And then I moved out and set up my own firm. So I'm currently a practicing accountant in Mombasa, where we do audits, we do accounting, and also advise businesses on which direction they need to take in order to prosper in their engagements.
Okay, Yusuf, let's just talk about the overview, the expectations. First of all, let's start with you. Your expectation of the 2021-2022 budget, which was presented by CS Ukurietani. What were your expectations before it?
Okay. Now, I think given the limited time that some of these programs take, sometimes it might just be necessary for one to look at the overview in terms of what the government expected to achieve, because that is what drives the economy. The government sets goals, the government put priorities, the government set fiscal policies to manage the economy, and then we fit in that scenario. So there are about 6 areas where the government is focused, and in its focus, it wants to make sure that each of those 6 areas are properly managed, well regulated, so that the economy can move forward. I'll just go through them quickly, and then probably I can expound on them, and then we look at the impact, because discussing the budget without looking at the general environment within which the budget operates, sometimes you might lose the point. Okay. So any rational government would want to ensure that there is economic growth, because this is the petrol, this is the
bread.
The blood that the economy requires in order to move forward. And here we are looking at a situation where year on the growth of the economy should be in ascending order. Yeah, I can give you the figures on where we were the previous year and where we are now and where we expect to go, and we'll come to that.
Absolutely.
And then managing inflation. Inflation is a critical element in any economy. If inflation goes out of hand, chances are that businesses may collapse. You might have a situation where there is too much money chasing too few goods, and then the price skyrockets.
Okay.
Yeah. Or it could be the other way. So that the government's intention is always to ensure that there is balance, that the value of the products or goods and services within an economy is matched with the available resources, so that inflation doesn't shoot out of the roof. The third thing that the government is always keen on is to have a stabilized exchange rate, so that the goods that we buy from imports or the exports that we make from our products, we are able to get the best out of it. So the exchange rate should be favorable to the economy. So the government ensures that if there are any activities in the market that would set the exchange rate moving in a different direction, it might have to intervene, sometimes even by introducing more foreign exchange currency in the economy to ensure that the exchange rate stabilizes. Then the government usually takes keen interest on what we call balance of payment. This is the net amount of inflows and outflows in an economy. Having excess inflow in an economy is to our advantage because it means foreign currency are coming in. So the government should create conducive environment where inflows will always be exceeding the outflows. Then we have the public debt. Under public debt, this has been an issue of concern to many Kenyans.
Yeah.
It's been discussed over and over and over again. And the import of this is that debt by itself is not the issue, but how you manage debt. Every single organization survives on a debt at some point because we may not have the resources as and when we need it every other time. So whenever there is a shortfall, there has to, we have to bring in debt in order to be able to cater for the shortfall in the for the shortfall in finances. Okay, so in our case, what has happened? There is a feeling among the citizens, the citizenry, that the debt is getting out of hand, and this is because the perception that we get and also the signs that are coming out is that we seem at some point to stretch a little bit extra in order to honor repayments of those debts. So debt is important. It is important to an extent that you are able to manage it. Now, one last thing that I would want to mention in as far as what an economy requires to get its house in order on is unemployment. Having a huge percentage of your citizenry unemployed is a burden to the government or to the government, because you'll then have to spend much more in order to maintain this group of individuals, this group of citizenry, in order to make them how would I put it, to live a comfortable life. Yeah. So the government aims at ensuring that unemployment level is kept to the minimum. And then when you have a workforce that is employed, they have the purchasing power, they can buy the goods, and then they'll end up having a strong government in place.
Okay, Yusuf, in the same point, I want us to dwell in the matter of actually taking debt, because we've seen Kenya actually at this particular time, we've got news all over that the debt that we have is quite big than what we could actually manage to pay off. Now, my question comes inside the debt. Now, these people who are going to pay the debt are the common mwananchi who are there. Now, in balancing, okay, in terms of balancing all that, how do we make sure that the common mwananchi does not suffer? Because we see things are actually, we've seen bread right now, the price has gone up. We've also seen the motorcycles, actually spare parts going up. Now, can we manage to come up with a budget in minimizing the debt which is there?
This is something that has been discussed over and over, and the government has its perception on how it wants to manage the economy, and the citizens have also got their perception on how they want to see the economy managed. But let me just point it out on the onset, like I mentioned, debt is not a bad thing. Yeah, there's really nothing wrong about a debt, but when do you take it, and how are you going to finance it? This is where the problem comes in. In our case, it appears that we are a little bit overstretched. And why do we say that? I want to give an analogy of a household, where you live, where I live, and where everyone of us lives. If you have a fixed income for your household of, let's say, 50,000, you need to budget within that range, so that if you need to spend more than 50,000, then you have to look for sources beyond your income. We do that most of the time. We don't live within our means, because there are needs that require finances, and we cannot do so from our normal sources of finance. So we go to finances, which is not a bad thing. But when we do that, we know our income, the 50,000, is able to liquidate that loan, or to repay the installments, to repay the interest. So if you find yourself in that situation, then there's really nothing wrong. But I think in our case, yeah, the government has deliberately taken up the move to improve our infrastructure, and it is doing so in a very, very elaborate way. In fact, infrastructure development costs a huge lot of money. And this is where the government is now being forced, in order to bring in foreign debts, or to go for debts, in order to finance this big, ambitious infrastructure. Infrastructure, it may not realize returns immediately, although it might provide citizenry with an avenue or a facility in order for them to go about the business. You'll be able to take your products, farm products, to the market. You'll be able to get to your place of work in a shorter period. So you end up cutting down on unnecessary cost. But at what expense does that come to? If you look at how much the government raises in terms of tax, and a case in point is the current budget, the 2021, the 2022. The government expects to raise about 1.7 trillion in terms of taxes. And our budget is 3.3 trillion. So you see, we have a deficit of about a trillion. Then out of that, the government expects to raise about 246 billion from what they call in AIE, appropriation in aid. These are areas where the government does services to third party and receives money in exchange. So it boosts its income. So in total, we are looking at a total revenue collection of about 2 trillion or 2.1 trillion. And with a budget of 3 trillion, we have a shortfall of about 930 billion. Now this has to be financed. And it has to be financed locally by about 630, and then the balance will come from external borrowing. Now, because our income is not adequate to cover our borrowing, the government will have to look for ways in order to raise the income by increasing our taxes. And this is where sometimes we end up saying, who are the losers? The losers mostly...
Winners and losers,
exactly.
Yes.
It's a very common term when it comes to the budget. Losers are normally those who will be called upon to cough slightly more in order to raise the funds required for the budget. And winners are those probably who get concessions. Their taxes have been reduced, or they have been scaled down a bit, in order for them to be able to achieve the government objective. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. If you tune in, this is the Umbrella Show with me, Dalila Hamza here. Under the Umbrella Show, we discuss matters that affect our society. And it is important to understand the budget 2021-2022 in a nutshell, its overview, its impact to the society, its impact to Kenyans, and their views. Today, joining me is YUSUF, a former chair of ICPAK, who is actually trickling it down and explaining us the impact of the budget, which was read just the other day. Now, moving on to the next question, because I see there are several questions which have come about concerning the overview of the budget of 2021-2022. Now, when I look at the social media site in Facebook, we have Ragishna Babe says, Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam, is also watching with us. We also have Saleh Muhammad is also watching with us. We have Ibrahim Mudibo who says, how is the government trying to reduce unemployment? Kindly explain on this, because the rate at which people are getting kindly explain to us on this, because the rate at which people are getting unemployed in this country is more threatening. That's just one question. Maybe your take on that. And then we have another question where he says, he comes again and asks, why is it that the budget of this country goes up hand in hand, equivalent to the national debt yearly?
Okay.
Will you start with the...
Let me start with...
the last one, the last question.
Let me start with... what would the government do in order to alleviate unemployment?
Yes,
yeah?
Because they say that, no, they say it is a fact that unemployment rate is quite high.
Exactly.
Now, what, especially when you talk about the financing part, how does it go about?
Okay. Now, I would want to refer you to the government's four-pillar agenda.
Yeah, the Big Four agenda.
Exactly, the Big Four agenda. Of course, we have manufacturing, we had food security, then we have universal
housing.
Universal healthcare, and then affordable housing. Yeah, I want to concentrate on the manufacturing, and because what is the government intent in having manufacturing as one of the Big Four agendas? The import here is that they want to create an enabling environment where manufacturers will be able to expand and be able to grow their businesses in order to produce more and increase our national gross products. Now, when organizations increase their operational capacity, they will require more resources in terms of human beings, in terms of machines, in terms of finance. Now, if it goes as per the government's plan, it is then expected that unemployment will be capped, because these unemployed persons will then find their way to fill in the extra capacity that has been created by manufacturing sector, which has received special attention by the government to be given a favorable environment to be able to produce more and increase their capacity.
Yeah, we've talked about we've touched about the employment. Now we look at on the budget, which was just read recently. We saw that a lot of youth, if you bear with me, or actually if you concur with me, on the streets, we see many youth have actually joined the boda ride. They are they're motorcyclists now, and the thing is, they have been levied the tax. Okay, they're part of the losers of this. Now, impacting them, how is it going to solve? I mean, how are we going to help this population which is there and is actually looking up to working in the boda sector?
I think one thing for sure is that when coming up with the budget, like we always say, we have the losers and the winners. And the winners. And in this particular case, if you look at the government intention of increasing taxes for motorcycle, let's get back to where we started from. I think when I think it was during Minister, I can't recall the name, but at some point the taxes on the motorcycle was waived in order to allow as many youths as possible to own them, yeah, so that it was making them a little bit cheaper, making them affordable, making them available for the youth. Running a motorcycle business is also considered among easier options available to start a business venture, because all what you need is a motorcycle driving license, and with about 80,000 you buy one and you're ready to start up. So it created business opportunities for many youths, and I think the government succeeded in that area. We are seeing youth all over the country. Going by the data that was sometimes back announced by the CS for Interior, we have more than 600,000 youths on the motorbike. Yeah? So it has created employment. But there is a fear that this industry is getting out of hand, and that the government wanted to also come in and bring in some order in the industry. Introducing taxes so to make it a little bit more dear. I think the government wants to reduce the pace at which the motorcycles are being owned and operated on. So yes, it created employment. There's a bubble in that industry, but now the government would like to tame it by introducing new measures to ensure that the growth is now more controlled.
Let's talk about the past few years, the budgets which have been there, and we have the 3.6 trillion which is currently. Now let's compare the budgets which were there. Do you see us getting any better from where we were?
Now I'll take you back to the last budget that our former president, Mr. YUSUF, oversaw. I think when he left the office, the budget was 1.7 trillion. Yeah? And now, over a period of about 9 years now, we're going to 10, it has come to 3 trillion. So it has gone up by about 1.3. Yeah? This is a tremendous and a huge increase in budget spending. It is all affected by the ambitious infrastructural project. So yes, it is different in that we are spending a lot more in certain specific area. This is infrastructure, and also now the government is also focusing on the 4 big agenda in order to alleviate the social welfare of the citizen. Yeah. During Kibaki's time, we never had ambitious infrastructural developments of this nature. We had them all right. This is when we built the Thika superhighway. I think it went in for about 32 billion. Yes, there was also expansion at Nairobi Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. Yeah. So development projects were there, but not to this magnitude. And that's where there is a departure, where we are coming from and where we are now. We are spending so much money in infrastructural projects, and that's gobbling a lot of money, and yet there's no immediate return on them. Yeah.
Okay, in the future, where do you see us? Because I want you to explain to us maybe, or expound more on the common mwananchi there, the significance of the budget. What does it mean for that person in order for them to hear? Because trust me, you go out there and you hear, the budget will be read and nothing will be happening. We're just expecting maybe fuel to go up, the prices to shoot up. What else? Some say that it hasn't fit them the way they were expecting it to be. Now, what are the significance? Because we need to understand the importance, especially the current budget which was just delivered to us by the CS. Its impact to us. What does it mean for a Kenyan, especially a common mwananchi, that Wanjiku who's out there?
Okay. Now, my take would be that this budget, as has always been the case with the previous one, it is more geared towards enabling businesses to prosper. Yeah. So the foundation is to lay out structures, policies that will allow businesses to grow, that will allow to increase their capacity. And with that focus on the businesses, there's very little that will touch on the Wanjiko or Wanjiko or Otieno or Kamau. Yeah, because the government is not focused in that area. The government is focused on enabling businesses grow so that they are able to employ more. I think, from my perception, what the government is doing is it is looking at a long term. You are now being given Mwarubaini. Is it Mwarubaini?
Yeah.
Yeah, this concoction that is alleged treats all manner of ailment. That is what we're taking now. So we are going to go through pain. We will not see much alleviation of our sufferings, but it is expected that over a period of time, when this incubation of manufacturing fully materializes, then job creation will come up in order to absorb the common man. But at the moment, there isn't much for a common one to rejoice about. Yeah, because if bread has gone up,
yeah, and trust me,
gas,
everyone, when you wake up in the morning, you just want a loaf of bread just beside you, and you look at gas and all that.
Because that is one of the most basic and common commodities that individuals, people in the low cadre would want to go for. Yeah, of course, given the area that one operates from, like for instance in the coastal area, apart from bread, we have other options like mahamri and so on and so forth. But even those ones, they're a little bit dearer.
I remember there was a certain governor who was saying people have diverted in using kangumu, those KDFs, yeah, because of the prices of the loaves. Now it's being hard. And we also see that there is a problem because a lot of people will be falling sick. They'll be having indigestion, which is a lot. Now people have decided to go with another alternative, which is there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So yes, you are right. This is the direction that the government is taking, and we do not see in the near future that trend taking a different direction. Why? I remember even during Kibaki's last few years in office, he just came out with the same approach, that I needed to build enterprises, I need to build the economy, because these are the drivers. If you have an economy that produces more than what it imports, then you're likely to improve in terms of your foreign currency, in terms of your foreign exchange, and so on and so forth. So the government, I think, is focused in that area. And for now and for a few years to come, I do not see much alleviation. Probably I can even take you back to last year when COVID hit us. This is the time when the government attempted to alleviate the sufferings of the common man, where the taxes for the salaries were reduced, and yeah, I think there are taxes. Yes, there are taxes, and also the wear and tear for machinery and equipment that are used in production. So we ended up having mostly employees taking home more money than before, because the taxes were amended in their favor. But this lasted only 9 months. It's from 1st of April to 31st of December. Come 2021, January, the rates applicable before COVID were implemented again. So we are back to square one.
Back to square one
Yeah,
again.
yeah. Okay. So you see, even though the government would want to alleviate the problem, but it comes in within a very short window, and it doesn't make much difference. Yeah. So the focus remains on manufacturing organization and business enterprises.
Okay. On your take, just us and just you, I, and the viewer there, I want to understand more the accountability. Do you think that the money allocated to different enterprises, will they be able to reach the exact people? Because when you look at the previous years, the accountability of where the money has been allocated, because we've seen several scandals coming up, like we've heard of the KEMSA, you see, certain kind of things. Now, the allocation of the money, the accountability, do you think that the money that had been allocated, like, has it been put into a proper use, especially when we look at the other agendas, the other people who have different agendas? I'm talking about the politicians, some of them who have been given the money and being allocated to enriching the common mwananchi. Now, has it been really accountable? Or the government has come out and say, maybe you tell me, that we have used this kind of money from the previous budget, which is there, the debt which are there, the transparency of what's really happening since there up to now?
Now, I think to answer that question, probably what I'd want to put across is we need to make reference to documented information. If you speak to me, I speak to you, or to any other person, especially a common mwananchi who goes through thick and thin in order to put food on the table, the perception they have is that the government is not totally transparent in as far as use of the funds given to them. And here they mean that there could be funds that are not put into proper use, or they have been outrightly misappropriated. And sometimes you can't blame them, because we have had a number of projects that the government will wish to see through, but over a period of time, some of these projects don't take place, and the funds sometimes are not even properly accounted for. So what would I want to make a reference to? Every financial year, or every year, we have reports prepared by the Office of the Auditor General. Now, this is the guy who looks at the government expenditure in every aspect, to the last shilling. He knows how much money has been sent to which ministry and for what purpose. If you look at the reports emanating from his office in the last years, some of those reports are not very pleasant. And I remember him at one point saying that over 30% of what is allocated to the ministries or to departments are not put into good use and cannot be wholly accounted for. So I think that is what the common man has picked, that the government may not be, the government does not account for, its accountability has some question marks. Because if the person who is charged in looking at your accounts is not happy, and he says 30% of that is misappropriated or not properly accounted for, then a common man would want to believe the same, because these are figures that he has gone through.
Yeah, because we just see figures which are actually there, but don't understand how they came about.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, if you're tuning in, this is the Umbrella Show with me, Dalila Hamza. I have YUSUF over here, who is the former ICPAK chair, and also we are discussing on the overview of the budget and how it has impacted, or its importance inside our country. Now, you as a taxpayer, you can be able to share with us the impact that it has made to you, because there are different views which are going on concerning the same. Now, let's divert back to the question which Ibrahim Mudibo had asked.
Okay.
Maybe you touch on that again. He had asked, why is it that the budget of this country goes up hand in hand, equivalent to the national debt yearly?
Okay. Well, I think that question, I would want to look at it this way, yeah, that we have what is allocated to payment of external debts and local debts. Then we also have recurrent expenditure for the government. Now, I think what he's referring to there is that as the recurrent expenditure increases, yeah, we also seeing a positive correlation with increase in the debts. And that's what is happening at the moment. If you look at the current budget, the total recurrent expenditure of the government is about 1.2 trillion. And the debt, the government, the deficit in budget for which the government will finance with the debt is 900 billion. So you see, it is moving in tandem, yeah. And I would want to believe that in as far as the debt is concerned, that is because of the appetite by the government to get involved in ambitious projects. In as far as the recurrent expenditure is concerned, we have too many constitutional offices. We have ministries, we have office of the president, and all these gobble a lot of money. There has always been a call to civil servants to reduce their expenditure in as far as traveling and training and entertainment is concerned. But that has never really taken root. If it does, probably it's just for PR, and within 3 months they're back to normal. So if these things are not tamed, wasteful in the government, and the appetite for infrastructural development increases, it will always move up in tandem. Yes.
Okay, now there's another person coming in saying, nice show, thank you very much, Senator Mtangazadi. What's your quest? What is your question, your expectation? We're looking at the overview of the budget which was just read recently and its impact to us. How has it impacted us since it was delivered? Now, moving forward, in your years of expertise, I would like to figure out like the counterparts which you've gotten so far concerning the issue of budgets, especially with the youth. If you have actually talked to them and sat down, maybe as an individual, their view concerning that.
Well, I think most of the youths from the discussions we have seem to have been their expectation, didn't seem to have been met. Why? Because they did expect to see much more than what they saw. Remember that if anything is to have a significant impact on you, then it has to hit you direct for you to feel. Yeah? And there is nothing that was really directed towards the youth. Which one would say, yes, it has a major impact. It can enable them create jobs. It can enable them open up businesses, or it can enable them prosper in whatever engagement they are doing. Yeah. So I would say I don't think there was much for the youth to be happy about.
You talked about sporting as also. Let's move back to the years when things were different, because they say the more you spend, the more money you'll need to get in order to compensate there. Now let's take a look at the overview of how sports has been, because I heard you're a lover of sports.
I do.
Yeah.
It's one of my hobby. I do a lot of sports over the weekends, during the week. I think it's important because keeping fit is one of the doctor's recommendations. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that it has changed, the budget which allocates to the youth so far from the previous years? Has it been changing for the better, or is there a reason to worry?
Well, I think the government has maintained its focus in developing sports in general, without necessarily coming out of its way and sinking extra funds. What it does is that if you look at Ministry of Culture and Social Services, where we have sports portfolio, it has received adequate funds in order to enable youth and sportsmen be able to go about their hobby. Yeah. So the government did not forget sports, or it did not give it a total blackout. Yes, they did receive their allocation, and it is expected that they would be able to use that moving forward. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, looking forward, as we wind up, let's take a look at how this whole issue, where do we see our budget next year? The overview of what it will be. Will it be improving, or still actually making the common mwananchi sink in the ocean, or like so ever? Do you see us sinking in more than where we are right now?
I think to answer that, we need to look at the mantra of our president. This is his last full year budget in office. Next year, this time he'll only have 2 months to go before the budget we presented then will last. So there must have been a deliberate move by the president to achieve his set goals and also to leave a legacy. So chances are that the budget may have the budget may have been deliberately increased in order for him to leave a legacy. Come next year, because he'll be on his way out, his thinking might be different, and it might be too early for us to start maybe it might be too early for us to start visualizing what will be his thinking in as far as the budget for next year. But if he had the leeway, I would see him continue in the same trend, because this is what he has done. From 2013, when we were at 1.7, we are now at 3 million. And every single year, the budget has always gone up. So if he continues with that mantra, I see this budget increasing.
Even more?
Yeah, even more.
Maybe your last your last remarks to our viewer out there.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for having invited our institute to come forward and discuss with you the budget. My take would be that let's assist the government in achieving its objective. The government is the government is putting forward structures in order to boost manufacturing, to boost commercial industries, to boost businesses. We need to take advantage of that with the favorable policies that have come in, so that we are able to prosper the economy and also to push it forward. So let's take advantage of what has come to our way, and where we can't and where it has pinched us, there's really nothing that we can do. Yeah. And you spoke about youths. I think youths are among those who get involved in betting. It's might be wise to just point out here that they're also going to be hit in that area. Betting will now attract additional taxes of about 20%, so it's going to be more dearer for them in betting.
I think that's a tough call for Simon Brett and the others who are out there concerning the same. Thank you very much for making time to
Thank
come
you.
into the studio.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for staying tuned up to this end of this show. I am Dalila Hamza. We were discussing on the overview, just the overview of the budget which was read currently, and we're going to go into deeper session of it quite soon. All you have to do is wait for the moment. I am Dalila Hamza. Thank you for staying in. Let's make it a laughing and a happy session for your afternoon.
Thank you.
Until next time.
Thank you very much.